Are you sure you're in control? And if I told you that the voice that guides your choices, your desires, your deepest fears, the voice in your head is not yours. It is the echo of old trauma, of buried memories, of inherited pains that you don't even remember living. And Carl Jung knew this long before modern psychology tried to give beautiful names for the confusion that haunts you in silence. From the moment you were born, the world began to write an invisible script within you. Your parents' words, silences of your childhood, camouflated orders of love. You have learned to be someone who pleases, that survives, that hides. But who would you be if you didn't have to protect yourself all the time? This question scares, right? Because she confronts what you call identity. But Jung said, everything you don't make conscious reappears in your life as a destination. And perhaps this fate you call bad, failure, repetition in relationships, perhaps all this is just the unconscious trying to talk to you, trying to wake you up. The problem is that no one taught you how to listen. They taught you how to study, work, produce, move on, but they didn't teach you to look inside. Because inside, the chaos lives. The shadow lives. And that's why you feel that you repeat patterns even when you swear you will change. That's why you always attract the same type of person. That's why, deep down, it looks like something wrong, but you don't know exactly what. You feel a silent anguish, an inner voice that asks, why am I like this? Why do I sabotage? Why, even when it's all right, something inside me seems to scream? That voice is your unconscious. She doesn't talk to words. She talks to symptoms, with dreams, with unnamed pain, with fears that have no origin, with decisions that look automatic. And as much as you try to rationalize, put everything in an emotional spreadsheet, in the end, it is always she who wins. The unconscious does not ask for permission. He commands you as an invisible director, and you think you are improvising. But Jung already said, the unconscious not confronted becomes destination. And this fate is exactly this life that always seems incomplete, always a little wrong, always a little out of place. The scariest? It's just that the more you try to silence this voice, the louder it screams. Only her cry does not come by the ears. It comes by anxiety, by insomnia, by procrastination, by broken relationships, for the lack of meaning. You look in the mirror and don't know who you are. You try to please everyone, but you feel that no one really sees you. You live to be accepted, but you no longer know who is being rejected inside. This is the voice of the unconscious, and ignore it. It's the same as betraying who you really are. But what if I told you that this voice is not an enemy? What is she actually? The map that takes you back home, for its essence, to your true self. Deep down, what scares you is the possibility of discovering that you never lived your life. And that is exactly what Jung shows us. The deepest journey you can do, it's into yourself. Maybe that's why you are here now, because even without knowing exactly why, something brought you to this video. This search, this restlessness, it's no wonder. It is your unconscious calling. It's life asking you to courage to stop running from yourself. And if you feel it, even if in silence, you are not alone. It has a force majeure, invisible, that moves meetings like this. There is something about you that is ready to change, to look inside, to start a new journey, more true, more conscience, and more soul. That's why I want to make you an invitation now. If this video spoke to you, if something inside vibrated, squeezed your chest, or made your eyes marejo, leave a prayer request in the comments. Yes, write what is hurting, what you want to transform, what you need healing. Here we believe in the strength of listening, presence, and spirituality. I will read, I will pray for you, and more than that, you will realize that you are not alone. Other people are also on this journey, facing the same emptiness, the same pain, the same cry by meaning. This space is more than a channel. It is a meeting place between souls who want to wake up. And your pain, it may be the beginning of your transformation. So comment here, "I want to wake up," or write whatever you need without fear. Let's pray together. Let's cross this shadow together. And if this video touched you, if you felt he revealed something you needed to hear, enjoy this video now. This is not just a click, it is a signal for YouTube to understand that this content needs to reach other lost souls out there. People like you, who just need a spark to start meeting. Subscribe to the channel, because EU. In the next few videos, we will dive deeper and deeper into the human psyche, the revelations of Carl Jung, in the symbols that guide its history, and in the healing that only come when we listen to what our silence inhabits. Click on the bell, activates notifications, and you prepare, because the next video will show you how your kindness can be just a defense mechanism, and how your soul is trying to wake you through pain. We see each other there. And until then, listening. Listen to the voice that dwells you. She has a lot to tell you. You feel you live in the automatic. That repeats patterns, that makes decisions, but doesn't know where they come from. You wake up, dress, smile, fulfill obligations, and at the end of the day, it seems that something was missing. No matter how hard you try, dedicate yourself, donate yourself. Inside, there is always a strange feeling, as if playing a role that was not written by you. You sabotage yourself, hide, annul yourself, and maybe don't even know exactly why. It only feels that weight, an existential suffocation feeling, as if carrying a suitcase full of stories that are not yours, as if since childhood you had been pushed into an identity built to be accepted, not lived. And if what commands your life is hidden, this question scares and also release, because when you begin to see that there is a silent force within you called unconscious that shapes your choices, your fears, your loves, your pain, it all starts to make sense. Carl Jung called it a personal and collective unconscious, an invisible field that keeps everything that has been repressed, forgotten, ignored, but still active. He manifests himself in dreams, in repetitions, in toxic relationships, in that "I have lived it before" feeling. Even if you are in a new phase of life, you think you chose that relationship, that work, that way of reacting. But what if it wasn't you? What if it was your complex of the injured child, still seeking approval? What if it was the ancestral fear of being rejected, which you carry since you were little? Who decides for you to this day? That's why you explode when you shouldn't, or shut up when it should impose itself. That's why you always attract the same type of pain, person, disrespect. Because there is a pattern. And this pattern was written by something deeper than your ego can see. The ego tries to keep control, try to maintain the appearance, try to please. But the self, this greatest intelligence, this divine spark that lives within you, wants truth. And the truth is sometimes uncomfortable. She demands courage to look at her shadow for everything you tried to hide from yourself. How many times have you felt that you were living someone else's life? How many times have you been praised for being exactly what chokes you? The strong, the good, the mature, the responsible. But no one saw you crying inside, right? This is not weakness. This is your unconscious trying to express yourself. In Jung's deep psychology, this is a symbolic symptom: emotional pain, constant anguish, existential emptiness. They are not defects. These are messages. These are signs that you are far from who you really are. And while you don't listen, these messages become shouting, crises, burnout, anxiety, depression, delays, fear, because the unconscious does not disappear when you ignore. He only finds another way of manifesting himself. And maybe you are at this point now, tired, exhausted to repeat the same cycles, wanting to change, but feeling that something invisible pulls you back. This is not crazy. It is the process of awakening. And awakening, it hurts. It hurts to realize that your life may have been led by trauma, family conditioning, old voices, but also release. Because when you start listening to what is behind the noise, you start to find your soul. Maybe you are living exactly this transition now, between what the world expects from you and what your internal truth wants to scream, between the character who built and the being that you really are. And if this video is making you feel it all, don't run away. Right here in the comments, let it leave. Put in words what no one has ever asked you. What hurts you in silence? What do you feel but can't you say? You can comment, "I also listen to that voice," or "I need to wake up," or simply share what is stuck inside. Here, you will be read, you will be heard, and we will pray together, because this journey, even being internal, need not be lonely. Carl Jung said, "As long as you don't make conscious what is in the unconscious, it will direct your life, and you will call you destination." And this is perhaps one of the scariest phrases ever spoken in the history of psychology, because it forces us to face an uncomfortable truth. You are not free as you think you are. MAEOR starts from the decisions you make, the reactions you have, the paths you insist on repeating. They don't come from your conscious will. They come from a deeper place, darker, older. You think you decide that you are in control, but what you call choice, in fact, is often an automatic response to what has not yet been healed. It is the unconscious that screams, and you obey. And the most disturbing thing is that this scream does not manifest itself with clear words. He speaks through symbols, trauma that repeat themselves, situations that seem different but exactly the same. Only the faces, places, the scenarios. Have you ever noticed that it seems to live the same stories with different people? Have you realized that even trying to change, do you end up attracting the same kind of pain? This is not unlucky. It is no coincidence. It is the unconscious putting you again in front of the same mirror, hoping that this time you see, and while you don't see it, it remains in charge. As a hidden screenwriter who repeats the same scenes, hoping that the protagonist finally wakes up. And if you don't wake up, he repeats, with more intensity, with more pain, with more loss, because the unconscious does not want its destruction. He wants integration, cure, awareness, but for that, he will confront you. This is how he acts. By symbolic repetition, by cyclic suffering, for the disproportionate emotions that come out of nowhere, for the anger that explodes without warning, for the sadness that sinks you out of nowhere, for the anxiety that paralyzes you, even when everything looks good. And the darkest, you can spend your whole life by obeying these hidden forces, believing you are choosing. You can marry someone who represents the father who has never welcomed you. It can move away from opportunities for ancient fear of rejection. You can sabotage projects because deep down, the child injured inside you is still afraid to shine. You call personality, but it's just protection. You call the way of being, but it's just the mask you built so as not to face your shadow. And this is the most perfect trap of the unconscious. It disguises you with you. He wears his voice. He expresses himself in his language. He inhabits his thoughts. And so you don't even realize you're being guided for something you don't even know. Carl Jung warned us, the real danger is not what you see, but what you refuse to see. Because what you repress controls you. What you deny gains strength. What you avoid feeling turns into destination, and the more you ignore, the more intense it becomes. That's why your life begins to look like a looping. You even try to change, read books, take courses, start therapies, but deep down, something pulls you back. Something within you still believes you don't deserve it. You can't, and that something is an unconscious complex, shaped by the pain of childhood, the beliefs inherited, the silences you have swallowed for years. The good news is that all this has a meaning, but the bad news is that it won't leave just because you want it. Because the part of you who are sabotaging you, you think you are protecting you. Yes, protecting. Of the original pain, of emotional abandonment, of the shame of being you, of the fear of not being loved. That's why you cancel yourself, adapts, hides behind the social persona, the mask they praised you to wear, but that now chokes your soul. And if none of this change, what expects you is a life that is not yours. It is a script programmed by old wounds, an identity shaped by fear, an existence in which you only survive instead of living. But you can still wake up. And if this video is moving you, if you hurt somewhere you can't name, maybe that's exactly the call you were avoiding. Perhaps this is the voice of the unconscious asking for listening. And if you feel it, if something in you wants to break this cycle, write here in the comments, shameless, no filter. Write, "This pain has a name," or "I'm waking up," or tells what is repeated in your life and that you no longer understand how to change. I will read, I will pray for you, and other people too, because what dwells you need not be faced alone. We live in a society that screams all the time, shouts on the feed, screams in the stories, shouts with ready-made motivation phrases and formulas for instant success, shouts to convince you to be someone, to show you what you don't have yet, shouts to make you run, not knowing where. But the true command of your life does not come from these screams. He comes from silence, a silence that you have not learned to listen, because this silence lives in places that no one taught you how to visit, inside you, there, where the noise of the world shuts up. There, where are the voices that have been with you ever, even if you have never realized? Voices inherited from childhood, voices that shaped you even before you were aware of what it is to be. Voices that said, "Don't cry, swallow it, be strong, no scandal." Voices that have not only educated you, but conditioned you. And today, deep in your mind, they still repeat invisible commands you follow automatically, as if they were your thoughts. But they are not. They are emotional programming. They are old-fashioned logic wounds. They are masked trauma of personality. What your parents said, what the school imposed, what religion taught, what society expected. All of this was stacked inside you, forming an image, a paper, a character you started to represent to survive. And the more you were praised for this role, the more you believed it was you. But what if it is not? Do you think you chose who has become, or just responded to the pain no one heard? Because when you look sincerely, you begin to realize that many of your attitudes are not born of freedom, but from the need to protect yourself. Protect the child who is still afraid of making mistakes. Protect the teenager who learned to silence to be loved. Protecting the adult who got used to pretending that everything is fine, even when everything crumbles inside. Jung called this persona the social mask you create to adapt to the collective. But every mask requires a sacrifice. And what you sacrifice when you wear this mask every day is your essence, your authenticity, your soul. And then you get lost, adapt so much that it dissolves. It gets confused, anxious, disconnected, because the more you move away from who you really are, the more the unconscious begins to charge. And he charges with symptoms, with voids, with repetitions, with identity crises, with relationships that fail without explanation, with this constant feeling of being displaced, even within you. And here is the cruel part. Modern society normalizes it. She rewards disconnection. It celebrates toxic productivity, false optimism, the aesthetics of perfection. The more you distance yourself from who you are, the more palms you get. But inside, you bleed in silence. You realize this when you wake up and feel an unnamed weight. When it is surrounded by people, but feel alone. When you have everything to be fine, but something still hurts. And this pain is not weakness. It is no failure. It is symbolic language. It's the unconscious calling you back, trying to break the persona theater, trying to remind you of what you forgot. And that goes for everything. Your relationships, your career, your spirituality. You may think you are choosing your way, but if you do not confront the hidden roots that control you, you will continue to walk in circles, believing that it is evolving, when in fact it is just decorating the old script better. And this script is not just yours. He is collective. It is transgenerational. It is in the collective unconscious that Jung described. They are inherited pains, repeated patterns, archetypes that command whole generations without anyone noticing. And until you make it conscious, your life becomes just another repetition of what has been lived before. But maybe, only maybe, this video is the beginning of a new cycle, a break point, a moment of pause between an outer cry and an inner whisper, an invitation to listen, really, the voice you spent your life trying to shut up, the one who doesn't scream, but guides you, the one who doesn't ask, but calls you, the one that doesn't require, but reveals you. And if you're still here, watching, feeling all this throb inside, comments here. Let something go out, one word, a sentence. Write, "I'm listening," or "the mask is falling," or shares what is starting to hurt, but that finally seems to make sense. This space is yours, it's ours, and here you can be read with soul. The voice of the unconscious is your soul trying to wake up, and that changes everything. Because maybe, for the first time in your life, you understand that you are not broken. You are only fragmented, misaligned, not because it is weak, but because it spent too much time trying to be too strong, trying to support an image, a persona, a role that applauded you but never fell into its essence. No one ever told you that. No one told you that this pain you feel, this anguish that appears in moments of silence, this restlessness that springs when everything seems to be too well, is not a mistake. It is not a defect. It is not a disorder. It is a language, an ancestral form of communication. It is his unconscious trying to cross the armor that the ego has built to protect. But now it has become prison. Carl Jung taught us that pain is a symbol. She is not here to punish you. She is here to reveal you. Reveal where you got lost, where you silent, where you cheated on. Because every emotional symptom that chases you carries a message. Every repetition that plagues you is a memory asking for listening. Each sabotage has a symbolic logic. But the world did not teach you to hear symbols. He taught you how to shut up, to run, the pretend it's okay. And the ego got used to this performance. He loves control, loves predictability, loves the idea that you have answers to everything. But the ego can't stand the chaos, and the unconscious, by its very nature, is chaotic. And that's exactly why this internal conflict exists. Because while the self, this deeper and deeper part of who you are, try to emerge, the ego panics. He resists. He creates distractions, doubts, justifications, because he knows if the self emerges, the old man you die, and this symbolic death scares, because it requires detachment. It requires the mourning of what you have always believed. It requires the resignation of the comfortable mask, and to give up the mask is to be naked before the mirror. It is looking into the eyes of your shadow and recognizing that she is you. You were not taught to do this. It was taught to avoid, to hide, to smile even when the soul screams. But what no one has ever told you is that this scream is not a collapse. It is a call. It is the summons of the soul for a new journey, not an external journey of achievements and goals, but a journey of return to you. And it all starts at the point where the pain appears. Because it is where the unconscious touches the conscious. This is where the wound becomes a bridge. This is where the soul says, enough of running away. You may have spent years believing that your anxiety is a problem, but what if she's just a voice saying that you live outside your pace? You may find that your sadness is disease, but what if she is just the mourning for a life that was never really yours? Jung said that the unconscious tells us about symbols, images, emotions, and that only when we give them meaning that can we free ourselves. You no longer need to fight yourself. You just need to translate what you feel, decode your own symptoms, look inside with courage. But for that, it is necessary to let the ego release the reins, and that is not done hard. It is done with surrender. Because the self doesn't scream, the self whispers, and only in silence it can be heard. Do you feel this call? This inner movement that seems to say, is there anything beyond that? So maybe it's time to stop running. Maybe it's time to hear what you have ignored for a lifetime. Not because you failed, but because it's time to remember. And if you felt it, write in the comments. Let it leave, let it flow. Writes, I'm remembering who I am, or pain brought me here, or even ego once controlled, but my soul wants to wake up. This space is more than a channel. It is a place of return, listening, of consciousness. What if all you suffer is just a relief request of your true self? What if this anguish that insists on coming back, this anxiety that consumes your chest, this sadness for no apparent reason, are not signs of weakness, but symbolic messages that something within you needs to emerge? What if, behind the pain, is a truth hidden that you spent a lifetime trying to avoid? The unconscious does not punish you. He awakens you. He calls you. But the problem is that most people have learned to silence this voice, to escape the discomfort, to be distracted, to be numb with routines, addictions, empty relationships, building a world where inner truth never has to be heard, because listening changes everything. Can you hear what your unconscious is trying to say? Can you realize that the pattern that is repeated in your life is not coincidence? That the type of person you attract carries the shadow you denied in you? That the situations that irritate you most are actually projections of what you have not yet integrated? The pain has purpose. She has a voice, and it carries a wisdom that no logic can translate. In the silence of pain, there is a call to awaken. But awakening requires courage. Courage to stop running, courage to face the mirror, courage to recognize that perhaps to this day you have lived only a conditioned version of yourself, a domesticated version, shaped by the fear of being rejected, for the childish desire to be accepted, for the ancestral weight of carrying what was not your own. And at this moment of life, when you feel that something no longer fits, that the old paths have lost meaning, that the places where you used to fit no longer recognize you, maybe that's exactly where the self begins to whisper. Because the self does not impose, he waits, expects the moment when the ego gets tired of trying to control everything. Wait for the moment you, exhausted from the ready answers, decides to look inside without fear of what you will find. This choice, as simple as it may seem, is radical. It is the choice of leaving the autopilot, to stop repeating, to question the personal myth you inherited. It is the choice to listen deeply, which is hidden under all layers of protection. You have already stopped to think that maybe, deep down, you always knew, I always knew something was wrong, that that job did not fill you, that that relationship didn't welcome you, that that lifestyle made no sense, but you stayed. Because the ego convinced you that it was the best you could have, that it was, or the abandonment, that was it, or nothing. But now what hurts is not the fear of abandonment. It is the abandonment of itself, the deepest pain that exists, to live distant from its own essence. And maybe that's why you are here, still here, because at some level you are ready to listen, ready to accept that the unconscious is not an enemy, it is a guide, that the shadow is not a monster. It is a part of yours that has been too long in the darkness, and that suffering, it is not failure, it is a symbol. The only question that really matters now is, will you keep shut up, the only voice that can free you, or will finally sit silent and listen to what your soul is trying to say? And if you feel it, if you have a fast heart, tight chest, or even tears in your eyes, comments here. Write, I am listening to my soul, or the pain wants to wake me up, or leaves your symbol, your sentence, what arises, because every word of yours here is an act of courage. And here, you're not alone. Here, your pain has space. Here, your voice will be heard. If you got here, If you felt something different throb inside you, if you had the impression that at some point it was not just a video, but a message that went through the screen straight to your soul, maybe you listened to something bigger. Perhaps it was the voice of God whispering through his unconscious, calling you back to you. And if this happened to you, you subscribe now on the channel. Not by algorithm, not out of obligation, but because you know this journey doesn't end here. She is just beginning. And in the next videos, I will show you how the unconscious shapes your relationships, your choices, your desires, without you realizing it. But now, you have started to realize, and that changes everything. Leave your like now if something has touched your heart. This simple gesture shows YouTube that this content matters. And more than that, it helps this message reach other people who, like you, are tired of living in the automatic, that are ready to wake up. And comments down here, I heard the voice. 3 words, but with a huge symbolic weight. They are your yes, your first conscious step, your answer to what you live in. And now, click on the next video, because what is to come will show you why you repeat the same patterns in your relationships and how your unconscious carries the key that can release you from it. You are about to see what has always been hiding. Click now, and it comes deeper.